Big data. What is big data? The definition of big data is data that contains so much volume, so much variety, and is increasing with so much velocity that it's hard to keep up. There is so much information in big data that traditional data processing software just can't manage them, but the enormous volumes of information that big data contains can be used to tackle business problems that you wouldn't have even hoped to tackle before. Let's look at what big data is and what it can do for us. A lot of people sum up big data with the 3 V's. They say the 3 V's of big data are volume, velocity, and variety. Volume is the amount of data you have. With big data, you'll have to process high volumes of unstructured data. What a nightmare! The data can be incredibly random things such as Twitter data feeds, click streams on a web page or a mobile app, or sensor-enabled equipment. You've heard of a gigabyte, you've probably heard of a terabyte, but big data deals in petabytes, in fact hundreds of petabytes. FYI, there are 1,000 terabytes in a petabyte. Actually, as the number of users online is increasing, more and more companies are dealing in zettabytes and yottabytes. There are 1 million petabytes in a zettabyte and 1,000 zettabytes in a yottabyte. So that's the volume part of big data. Velocity is talking about the fast rate at which data is received and acted on. Imagine how many people watch YouTube videos every day and how much data you can suck out of their clicks and searches. It's a lot and it comes in fast. In the olden days, data used to be stored to a disk somewhere and then analysed afterwards, but nowadays that would be far too slow. For an idea of scale, it would take about 5 years for you to download 1 petabyte of data on average broadband speed. Today, a lot of data analysis software can operate in real time and can evaluate and take action on data in near real time. Variety talks about the many types of data that are available. Traditional types of data were structured nicely and would fit neatly into a tidy database. With the rise of big data, information comes in unstructured data types. We have text, audio, images, and video. So you can imagine the sorts of processes that are required in order to derive any meaning from that data. So that's the 3 V's of data. But wait! In the past few years, more V's have snuck their way into the description. It's alright having so much data, but how much of it is actually useful, and how much of it can we actually trust? Well, that's where value and veracity come in. Value is, as you would imagine, referring to how useful and valuable a set of data is. Today, big data is the currency that a lot of companies run on. Some of the world's biggest tech companies deal purely in data. Think about Facebook and Google. A large part of the value that these companies offer comes from the data that they're able to collect and process. Companies like this are constantly analysing their data to produce more efficiency and also to develop new products. Finding the value in data is a huge, enormous process of discovery that requires vast teams of analysts, business users, and executives who have to ask the right questions and then recognise patterns. They can then use that to make informed assumptions about things and even predict behaviours. Veracity is all about making sure the data is accurate, which means processes to stop bad data from accumulating in your systems. The amount of garbage data that comes into a lot of data analysis processes is huge, and if left unfiltered, it can affect the value of your data enormously. There are some people who have added 2 more V's to the big data description: variability and visualization. Variability is different to the variety of data. Remember, variety talks about the different types of data that you get, things like images, text, video, etc. But variability talks about things like how different varieties of data differ. For example, images may be big or small, blurry or clear, and videos could be long or short, HD or low quality. These all make a difference in how quickly the data can be processed and the value that that data holds. Visualization talks about how challenging big data can be to visualists. You can't rely on traditional graphs when you're trying to plot 1 billion data points, for example. So you need different ways of representing data. These include data clustering, tree maps, sunbursts, parallel coordinates, circular network diagrams, or comb trees. Combine this with variability and the high velocity that the data is coming in, and you can see how tricky it can be to find meaningful ways to visualize the data. But what is the point of big data? Well, big data can help you address a range of business activities from the very start of the customer experience right back to the ins and outs of how you analyse the information that they give you. Some examples of how you can use big data is product development. You can use the data to anticipate customer demand before you create a product. Customer experience, you can work out how best to arrange everything to give the customer the best experience possible, which will hopefully lead to a guaranteed sale. Or fraud, you can use the data to look out for patterns and identify any fraudulent activity. So I hope that's given you a brief understanding of what big data is. Obviously, there's a huge amount more that you can learn, but now you've got a fundamental understanding, you can build on that with ease. So remember the 7 V's of big data of volume, velocity, variety, value, veracity, variability, and visualization.